All right, well, good evening. Thank you. My name is Kurt Scher. I'm the director of the Innovation Center here at Booz Allen Hamilton. I'd like to welcome you all on this fine, gorgeous DC night to what's going to be a fantastic event for us. One of my greatest pleasures in everything we do here is to host events like this. We've been a longtime supporter of Ben and FedTech and the teams that come here. Tonight we're going to have the opportunity to hear some inspiring ideas, some really interesting pitches from what I'm sure everybody got to hear in the other room, from some really engaged and passionate people. These pitches, as many of you know, are going to be about imagining something new, which is really about change. And sometimes we forget how quickly things are changing. So I'm going to use, just for a quick anecdote, because I find this amazing, a story. We're going to use the internet as a proxy for change and how fast things are moving. So let's imagine, and I'll assume for a minute that FedTech's sponsoring this. So let's imagine I've got right here in my pocket a check for $10,000. And I can give that check to anybody out there that wants it, but the only thing you have to agree to is one thing. You have to agree and promise to never use the internet again for the rest of your life. How many people would take the $10,000? Got one. Got one. What if the check were for $100,000? How about $100,000? How about $500,000? Starting to get interesting, right? How about $1 million? $1 million tonight if you agree never to use, and this includes phone, telecom, no internet connections ever again. So that starts to get interesting. There are no hands up right now, maybe a couple nods, people are paying attention. But this was an experiment posed by a professor named Michael Cox at Cornell to his undergrad class about 2 years ago. How many undergrad students do you think agreed with $1 million never to use the internet? 0, right? So just think about that. Think about 10 years ago, what would that have been? I bet it would have been a lot more people than 0. So the question for us as we think about your ideas tonight is what's the question now that 10 years from now, people might say yes to, but in 10 years is going to become indispensable to the way we live life. So this change is something that we recognize and feel at Booz Allen. This is our mission. You can see on the wall here, empower people to change the world. We opened this innovation center 2 years ago and have had 22,000 people through and about 800 and some events like this through that time. And really our mission is to help bring together people like you with our hard missions that we're trying to solve for our clients to create connections and advantages so that we can solve problems together for our clients. And so having that mission and really setting the conditions for innovation to occur is what we do in this space day in and day out. So normally, if these chairs weren't here, we would have about 85 people in this space working projects much like you've done. They have about 10 to 12 weeks to pull that together and then pitch to Booz Allen leadership, kind of an internal incubator. One of the things we're looking to do is how do we then take groups like this and combine them with some of the teams we're working on and things like machine intelligence, directed energy, problems like that. And Ben and I are in close conversations on how to do that. So I'm going to get off the stage. Let me introduce Ben. This is why we work with groups like FedTech. This is why people like Eric are going to talk about some of the things that I know that he agrees with a lot of us in terms of how we think about innovation and making change. And so I could not be more proud of Booz Allen for supporting this work and having you guys back again and hearing your pitches tonight. So Ben Solomon.
Yeah, and I just want to give a thanks to Kurt and the Booz Allen team here. I think this is our 5th event that we've held with you guys. So you've been an amazing partner, and look at this wonderful space here. No better place out there than to celebrate technology transfer and building new companies. So as Kurt mentioned, my name is Ben Solomon. I'm the head of the FedTech program, and just to give you a little bit about our story. So we go out and we build companies around really cutting edge R&D, largely in defense labs, but we also work with some other government labs and universities now for the first time in this cohort. And really, tonight is the end of a very long process that happened very quickly in some ways also, where we started recruiting entrepreneurs, I would say back about 6 months ago, and this cohort that we have here today is by far the most diverse that we've ever had. Just to give you some numbers, 16 teams. We had upward of 50 entrepreneurs, mentors, and inventors representing 15 states. So really, what started off as a local program here in DC has become a national phenomenon, and really, hopefully starting to move the needle in a tangible way. To give you a sense of sort of what we put our teams through, we built them around a technology that they never had been exposed to for the most part, and immediately kick them out the door and have them start interviewing customers, building a business model, pitching, every week getting yelled at by our teaching team. It's a hard process. The teams did amazingly well, and we're really proud of them. And tonight is the culmination of a lot of hard work. So if I could just get our teams, because we have 16 teams and we'd be here all night if we had everybody present, we had to pick just 4 that will pitch in this part. But I want to recognize everybody. If the teams could all stand up, please. Thanks, guys. And then none of this happens without our federal lab partners. So if we have folks from the federal labs, either inventors or tech transfer, if you guys could just stand up and get recognized. And then finally, our teaching team members and mentors. We have an amazing group here that help the teams go through this process. If you guys could stand up. Great. So tonight, guys, we're really lucky to have an amazing keynote by Mr. Eric Tuning, and then we'll have 4 pitches tonight after that. Want to say thanks to our sponsor, MD5. So without sponsorship, guys, none of this happens. So Morgan Plummer, if you don't mind, Morgan is the managing director of MD5 and is going to say some words about the organization. Lots of cool opportunities to get involved with outside of FedTech. Morgan, thanks for being here.
So I'll be brief. Again, my name is Morgan Plummer. I'm the managing director of the MD5 National Security Technology Accelerator. And among the many things that we do, not just sponsoring FedTech, we are one of the many organizations that are sort of engaged in the defense innovation ecosystem. And one of the things I think that makes innovation challenging at the Department of Defense in particular is the sort of different theories of the case. There are a lot of different theories for how you bring innovation into the department, and they can range anywhere from making more flexible contract vehicles, to making the department more translatable, to helping people understand what the defense market looks like. Or it could be as simple as we just need to do better at things like tech transfer. It could be something as simple as just figuring out a way to increase the relevancy of basic research at the number of academic institutions around the country. Our own sort of theory of the case, MD5's theory of the case, and the reason really that we're kind of here tonight, is we are deep believers that if the department is going to find new solutions, that it needs new thinking. And in order to access new thinking, it needs to be interacting with new people. And it's in that context that we really are assembled here tonight under the umbrella of FedTech. All of you who have volunteered, and I mentioned this in my opening remarks to this cohort, all of you who have raised your hand for whatever reason and said, I want to be part of the solution. I want to be part of delivering innovation to the Department of Defense. And that's an incredible thing, and I'm deeply thankful to you for it. So whatever the solution, the sort of theory of the case ends up looking like, one thing is for sure, and I've just alluded to it, it is this: the department cannot do this by itself. We need help, and we need you all to be engaged, and we need thoughtful partners that can show us new ways of thinking and new ways of doing business and new applications for old technology that we've got sitting around on the shelves, a la FedTech. But we are definitely going to need partners in this journey. And the department believes this so much, in fact, that it has established an office called the Office of Manufacturing and Industrial-Based Policy that is specifically responsible for figuring out a way to galvanize and catalyze the traditional and non-traditional industrial base so that we can open the aperture and figure out a way to bring more people to the table and join the department in the important work of national security. So on that note, it is my great pleasure to introduce the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Manufacturing and Industrial-Based Policy, and my boss, Mr. Eric Tuning.
Well, thank Morgan for those great comments. It's funny. It's such a small world. I don't know if you all knew or not, but Kurt and I actually worked together about 10 years ago at Booz Allen Hamilton. So the innovator ecosystem is great, but is also very small in some interesting ways. So as Morgan mentioned, I'm the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Manufacturing and Industrial-Based Policy. I'm relatively new to the role. I joined the Pentagon about 6 months ago. Where I came over, I was a partner at McKinsey. And as many of you in the room will appreciate, when I had the opportunity to come join the administration, I, of course, talked to my daughters, who are ages 5 and 3. And I said, hey, Daddy may change jobs. What do you think? And they all nodded. And I said, okay, well, the change in jobs may mean that Daddy doesn't travel as much. And they said, okay, that's good. Daddy's going to be home more. Daddy, where are you going to work? And I told Claire, my 5-year-old, I'm going to be at the Pentagon, to which she looked at me as only a daughter can and said, Daddy, that's a shape. You can't work in a shape. I said, yes, you're very right, my dear. But hey, no, I can't echo Morgan's comments enough. Thank you all very much for, one, volunteering to be here, and two, doing what you're doing. In preparation for our talk today, I went through, some of you may know, we get this sort of rundown of news articles every day that sort of senior leaders that the Pentagon are supposed to read. And it's funny, as I was going through them just randomly, there are several that hit on exactly why you're all here right now. So let me tell you a little bit about what's going on if you ever doubted the importance of what you're doing and why you're here. The Army, title From Breaking Defense, Permanent Evolution, Secretary Army Esper on Futures Command. And the headline quote is, the goal, Army Secretary Mark Esper told me in an exclusive interview, is to keep adapting to new challenges in a way that, while alien to the federal government, is common to both frontline Army units and the private sector. Another article of import, particularly for this group, talking about dual-use technologies. Pentagon pushes to add foreign investment curbs to defense bill. This is about, if you all saw, but Secretary Mattis's letter to the SASC and the HASC about adding FIRMA, which is the Foreign Investment Review and Modernization Act, to the NDAA, because we're increasingly concerned about foreign direct investment as a means for our competitors to gain U.S. technology and gain access to innovators. And it's so important that we want it to be part of the National Defense Authorization Act. Another article, this one a little more concerning. Chinese missiles are transforming balance of power in the skies. The headline subtitle is Rapid Technological Progress in China's Aerospace Industry, particularly in air-to-air missile systems fired from aircraft, is changing the game for Western air forces. And then finally, 3 essential reforms to how the Pentagon does business. We know we have a problem with innovation, and we're working very hard to fix that. My own experience, in addition to my time at McKinsey, was an Army officer. And like I bet many of you here, I was actually first introduced to cell phones with my first job out of college. Was an investment banker at Morgan Stanley. Do you remember the old StarTech telephones, the old flip phones, right? So first cell phone, year 2000, thought it was really cool, had one. Ended up joining the Army after my time at Morgan Stanley. 4 years later on the battlefields of Iraq, I see that same cell phone, but now it's attached to an IED. And so if you ever doubted the importance of commercial technology and the impact on innovation, it happens. If you really think about it, something that was essentially a luxury good 4 years earlier, we found on the battlefields in Iraq that were inflicting harm on the United States military. And that trend is only going to increase. For those of you who read our National Defense Strategy, a particular line that I'll call out to you is from that document. The fact that many technological developments will come from the commercial sector means that state competitors and non-state actors will have access to them, a fact that risks eroding the conventional overmatch to what our nation has grown accustomed. Maintaining the department's technological advantage will require changes to industry culture, investment, and protection across our national security innovation base. Now, our national security innovation base is all of you. And the reality is we're retooling that national security innovation base for great power competition, which essentially means our system of innovation has to outcompete those countries that we know we're now in competition with. And that's going to be hard. And that's probably the largest challenge our country is going to have to face over the next generation. And we're not going to be able to do it without you and those like you who are out there to innovate. Our commitment is to maintain the integrity of the decentralized innovation ecosystem that has enabled us to be successful, and for the department to reform how we access that innovation so we can fully leverage it going forward. Programs like MD5 and FedTech are definitely part of the solution, as are the presentations that you all will share tonight. And so thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing what you all have.
Oh, yeah. So we have a honorary member of the FedTech Spring Cohort diploma. Sure. And then a FedTech beer mug here. So,
Thanks so much, Eric, and thanks everyone for coming tonight. So tonight, we're going to have the top 4 teams pitch. Now, some of you may be thinking, and especially some of the folks who are the rest of the 12 teams in the cohort thinking, well, why wasn't I picked, right? So I've had a lot of comments about that. This is really the teams that we felt made a significant progress here. We also wanted to showcase to the audience a diverse cross-section of the teams that we had. So you'll see a lot of different technologies here. You'll see a lot of interesting interviews that these folks have had, and what they're going to be what they're going to be doing in the future. So without further ado, let me introduce the first team that's going to be coming up, and this is from the technology comes from Sandia National Labs, which is out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, and this is the Duff team. Just gotta push these on to start. There we go.
Hello, everybody. We're Team DUF, and DUF stands for Digitally Unclonable Function. This is a cybersecurity technology that was developed at Sandia National Labs by Dr. Peter Choi, who's present with us here today. And he actually has more than 20 years of experience in cybersecurity. My name is Andrew Marjanic. My background is in international finance and investment. Bill Sherman here comes with a background in software engineering, and Deepak Seth has experience in engineering and communication networks. When we first started the program, we went out looking for cybersecurity problems, and we didn't have to look for a long time to find them. Almost every day, you hear about companies getting hacked, losing millions of data, losing millions of personal information and credit card information of their users. So actually, an interesting thing that John Chambers, former CEO of Cisco, said was that there are 2 types of companies: those that have been hacked and those that don't know they have been hacked. But what's more interesting is how these companies are getting hacked now. There was a situation where a casino got hacked through a Wi-Fi connected tank thermometer in their lobby. And they were able to withdraw information through that. But this creates other problems, because now even your vehicles have a bunch of computers on them. Did you know that an average vehicle out on the street today has over 150 computers on board? And all of those are now getting Wi-Fi connected. They're trying to send updates to your vehicle through the air, and it creates vulnerabilities for hacking. These 2 gentlemen you see in the picture here were able to hack into a Jeep Cherokee back in 2015 and actually shut its engine off while it was driving on a highway. So how can DUF be applied here, and what is DUF? So digital unclonable function technology, it provides a unique unclonable signature that is embedded in the physical electronic device, such as your computer, your phone, maybe a credit card chip, or even your vehicle car keys, which can actually be hacked. And when somebody hacks the vehicle keys, they store the signal and then replay that signal near your car and are able to enter the vehicle, start it, and drive away. Now, how DUF works is if DUF technology is embedded in this key and in your vehicle, then that vehicle only recognizes the signal from that one key that was given to you by the manufacturer. So at the end of the day, we were asking ourselves, who needs DUF?
So who needs DUF? Well, everybody needs DUF, right? You need a Duff. You need a Duff. But seriously, when we first embarked on this program and we were introduced to the technology, we were thinking to ourselves, everybody should want Duff. In fact, myself, a victim of credit card theft, I feel like I need Duff ID. But via the customer discovery process, we figured out that it's not that simple. We needed to get out there and we needed to talk to people. Sorry if you can't hear me. We needed to talk to people. We really need to understand the problem areas where the Duff ID is absolutely applicable. So what we did, we first started by casting a wide net. Here, we identified some of the industries we're initially thinking about: the financial institutions, financial services industry, enterprise IT, and just to mention a few, the automobile industry. Okay? So after we determined the industries that we wanted to focus on, we went out and started interviewing folks. And what we immediately learned is that even though Duff technology, the Duff ID, is an excellent solution, there are other solutions in the marketplace that people deem to be sufficient. They will do the bare minimum if they have to meet certain requirements and guidelines. So with that being said, what we soon realized, and as I mentioned, there are other products in the marketplace that we could focus on. This meant a couple things. We could either convince people that the Duff technology is superior technology, or just plain realize we're not talking to the right people. So what we did, we slightly pivoted and decided to continue our customer discovery process. And then via additional conversations and going to the RSA conference in San Francisco a couple of weeks ago, we identified 3 key areas, problem areas, that we believe the Duff technology is applicable and we will choose to move forward with. The first, supply chain. What we find is that some industrial manufacturing organizations are looking to safeguard their product. They're looking to ensure the authenticity of their product and also prevent counterfeit products from getting into the marketplace. The second, hacking of shared vehicles. We found that some share organizations, especially in Europe and Russia, have had their cars hacked into, and where hackers have taken their cars on joyrides without paying for it, of course. And they've also sometimes crashed those vehicles. So that's a significant loss for that organization. And last but not least, bank-to-bank transactions. What I do know that organizations, banks, submit bulk transactions to end-of-day processing from system to systems, right? So what can happen? Mistakes can happen, where somebody fat fingers wrong IP address or password or user ID, and those transactions are sent to the inappropriate set of organizations. So what you have there, income loss, reputational damage, and even incompliant systems. And we believe the Duff technology can solve these particular problems.
So we realize we have to dig deeper into some of these issues, so we're planning to continue our customer discovery process. So if you have any contacts, we would welcome them. Additionally, we are planning to continue to ask you if you have any contacts in the areas of automotive cybersecurity, or if you know of anybody in industrial supply chain or know of anybody in the banking sector, we would love to talk to you. Also, we are planning to seek government funding to build and test a prototype. Next slide, please. So on behalf of the Dove team, we'd like to thank you very much, and we plan to stick around afterwards, so if you'd like more information, please do come talk to us. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys, so much. So instead of doing Q&A, they'll be around, all the teams will be around after to answer any questions that you may have, just to move things along a little bit. So the next team that we are going to bring up is a team out of, it's out of SPAWAR, so the Space and Warfare Systems Command from San Diego, and this team is focusing on a multi-segmented magnetic crawler. So without further ado, there you go.
Great, thank you. Can you guys hear me? I know I have a fairly soft voice. Excellent. Okay, so thank you so much for being here tonight to listen to our pitches. We bring you the multi-segmented magnetic crawler. I am Alina. My background is in research, molecular biology, and also business. And I focus in particular in creating effective teams. My colleague Emily is a product designer, and she believes that a lot of the flaws in the designs are due to human behavior. And Brendan is our product manager, and he helps his customers deal with their challenges in creating solutions. And of course, Narek and Aaron are our inventors. They come from Spaywar in San Diego. And as you can see, we have a very diverse team, but one thing we have in common is we all deal with complex problems. And mirroring our team, the robot that we have is a very versatile team player. As you can see here, it has a unique link and modular design, and in addition, we have found out it basically helps humans deal with a complex environment. So unlike some of the specialized robots, it has magnetic wheels, it can be submerged underwater, and it has a wide range of motion. So I'm going to give you to him.
So it's pretty cute and charismatic. We, oops. So we first started out looking at some of the more obvious use cases for the robot in civil and energy infrastructure inspection. We were looking at specifically metal infrastructure. We interviewed folks that work with bridges, build bridges, folks that sell and manufacture wind turbines, offshore oil derricks, and shipping containers and ships. It was originally for Navy hull inspections. We thought, okay, let's interview people in the commercial shipping industry. We found in all these cases, yes, there is a place for this somewhere. We would need to dig a little deeper past the 11 weeks doing this part-time. We conducted more interviews, around 40, and found additional use cases pop up. The LA Metropolitan Water District was talking to us about using this as a water quality monitoring tool, specifically sending it through metal pipes to scrape off quagga mussels that infest them. This is for freshwater infrastructure, so the quagga mussels can't be treated chemically. And as filter feeders, they tend to colonize these pipes like saturated fat would do if you're eating burgers for 30 years. So they want to talk to us a little more about that. We also thought that the robot would fit well in disaster response, both in real time and also the effects after. So in the top right, that's the building on fire in Brazil a couple days ago. We were talking to folks at FEMA that would be interested in scanning these buildings in real time to provide information in response to something, not necessarily in comparison to previous use cases where we're monitoring existing infrastructure and there's no real-time change. In the case of disaster response, it would be important to react quickly to these situations. And in the aftermath with what you see in the bottom right, those are the manufactured housing units distributed by FEMA. We are currently speaking with them about testing the robot in their inspection protocol. They need to look at the structure from underneath before they can send the MHUs out for people to live in or reoccupy the regular maintenance protocol, and they definitely want to talk to us about testing this right away, like this month. Brandon?
So where do we go from here? One of the main things we'd like to do is continually diving into some of the customers that Emily just mentioned. We're really interested in kind of refining our prototype. I think like one of the other things that's really important to us is applying to the FedTech pre-accelerator, which would give us an opportunity to figure out how to start a business around this if we choose to go that route, explore other licensing models and funding models. We're really excited to find collaborators and technical advisors. So if you're available, if you're in the tech space, if you do robotics, engineering, infrastructure, management, water systems, please come talk to us. And thank you for coming out this evening.
Okay, next up we have a team from Princeton University. As Ben mentioned, this is our first year where we're working with university labs. So we worked with MIT and Princeton this year. And the cool thing about this team is that one of the inventors, Nick Davey, is actually part of the team as an entrepreneur as well. So without any further ado, let me introduce Luca.
Great. So as Jake said, my name is Nick Davey. I'm a PhD candidate at Princeton, finishing up. This technology was the substance of my PhD. I'm joined by Jennifer Leung, who is an architect. She's director of LCD Studio in Brooklyn. She's also a lecturer at MIT. Another compliment is Tony Voss, who is a professional engineer. He's been working in this space for over 25 years. Project management and construction. So as you can see, we're a diverse team, both in generations and in background. It's been really interesting as a hybrid inventor / entrepreneur in this program to go through and to have these professionals to talk to and digest some of this material we've been learning. And Luca Technologies is the name of the startup coming out of Princeton. So this startup is based on near ultraviolet solar cells. That's the core technology that we developed. Silicon that you see on the roof, it's black, it absorbs all wavelengths. You can also design materials that selectively harvest certain wavelengths. In this case, we're harvesting near ultraviolet light, we're transmitting visible light, and we're transmitting near infrared light. That makes us a perfect complement for smart window applications. Smart windows, this is an existing technology. There are a few big players, mature players, and a number of emerging players. Smart windows, they control solar heat gain by going from a clear state, like the windows we have here, to a tinted state. I don't know why this movie's not playing. Here we go. That's an example of a prototype that we already built. We published this work in Nature Energy last summer, and I authored a patent on this through Princeton that Luca has exclusive license to. So coming from this academic environment, we were really thinking about energy savings and carbon emission mitigation. But it turns out those were not really the value propositions that were most important that we uncovered through the FedTech program. So Jennifer is going to give us this story.
Thanks, Nick. So because we have an inventor with us, we were able to do a kind of parallel tracking. And so while Nick looked at R&D prospects, Tony and I first targeted residential owners and traditional architect, developer, contractor markets. Taking cost and functionality as our points of departure, we learned a few things. The first was that we got a lot of really positive response about the wireless capacity of the windows. And this ranged across a multiple number of sectors, from industrial to education, commercial, and also residential. Some other things that we learned were that cost savings and functionality are essentially assumed across the board. This is not new, but people who are in hurricane zones or who are interested in IoT are additionally incentivized. So there were a few important pivots during the cohort, and I won't go through all of them, but we were able to tap into some high-level conversations, including some of my colleagues at MIT, Autodesk, the largest architectural software manufacturer, Arup, a global engineering company. And so some of the pivots allowed us to understand that there is a unique market in modular prefab that is set to mature in about 5 or 10 years, which we think our product fits well in. We started to learn that targeting existing glass and window companies as customers rather than competitors actually would let us scale. And then there is something that still trips off my tongue a little oddly, but the millennial segmentation. This really is a market that we want to speak to. So In summary, where that really led us was to flip the primary value props from cost savings and functionality to wellness and security. So wellness covers, it's a kind of umbrella term that absorbs sustainability, resilience, carbon zero, but actually is also very person-focused: health, hygiene, thermal visual comfort, and productivity. Security as well, we mean privacy, blast-proof, and impact resistance. So this leads us to a new customer base. So prefab smart home innovators like BMW Mini, visionary tech CEOs and companies like Apple Real Estate, existing window and glass manufacturers like Oldcastle, Marvin Windows, and finally back to government and military, which we had looked at initially. But what we start to realize is that primarily in talking with a colleague who is the former chief architect of the GSA, that there's a range of opportunities from high-profile buildings to modular construction out in extreme environments like our men and women in service who are setting up field hospitals.
So we did a lot of market research on this product, and we're trying to figure out what the opportunities are. The smart glass window is projected to grow by 16% to $8.3 billion over the next 5 years. The key industries are residential, commercial, the institutional buildings, the healthcare facilities, the automobile, the aerospace industry, marine industry, and possibly we are also looking at the goggle space and the eyewear space. So with this patented technology, we are very interested in creating strategic alliances with other manufacturers in the smart space industry, smart glass industry, and possibly being a value add to them with our IoT wireless technology in operation.
Right, so we've validated that having this solar power integrated with smart windows in order to make the windows wireless is of value for a number of partners, from glass companies to really IoT connectivity being, ease of integration of these units in prefab. So next steps, we're going to launch the company. We're going to raise a seed fund this summer. We have, some traction on that. Going to close by August 31st. So that's really based on the commercial opportunity. On the other hand, through FedTech, with the wonderful background in military and government expertise we have here, we've uncovered some other opportunities in the military and government space. So we want to explore these through SBR, but also through subcontracts with industries that already have these larger contracts in place. So if you are interested in talking with us about either investment or partnership, we'd love to talk with you. And yeah, to close, really, we've identified a few pilot projects for the beginning of next year. That's really our long-term goal at this time. So reach out to us, info and Luca. We'll also be in this room right here to the side that hopefully we can get a little quieter atmosphere. Thanks.
Okay, so for our final presentation, we had two team members. One of them could not make it today due to an emergency, but we have the other one here, and she was working on a technology from the Army Research Lab in Maryland, and I'll let her take it from here. So please welcome Kara.
Hello, everyone. What an honor to be the last speaker. As you heard, my name is Kara Wiseman, and our co-entrepreneur is Stuart Brose, who, like I said, unfortunately couldn't be with us this evening. Stuart is an informational technology professional and is definitely credited with a lot of the beautiful graphics that we have tonight and the the way that this process will flow. My background is in neurology and gene therapy. I have a PhD in biomedical sciences, but I also worked in chemistry in the pharmaceutical side as well as pharmaceutical manufacturing. So our inventors are from the Army Research Lab, and they are Rongzhang Zhang and Dot Tran, and we worked with Julio Suarez as our information technology coordinator. So today I'm talking about the power-free apparatus that generates hydrogen from alcohol. So initially, when you think, what can you do with hydrogen gas? There's so much. We were almost overwhelmed with the possibilities. And so we had quite a big and broad customer focus. And most of our story today is going to talk about interesting pivots and interesting contacts. So initially, we thought this hydrogen generator will help people who have manufacturing questions or need hydrogen gas for some power generation. This specifically provides no toxic byproducts. Our byproducts are carbon dioxide, water, and hydrogen gas, and electricity that can be modified back in or utilized as well. So as we went and we validated our value propositions, our initial customer focus was for the hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. We were very excited about this because we both thought about green technologies, and we thought manufacturing would be a really interesting place to put this information both together and work within the product stream. However, our customer interviews, this is our old one. Our customer interviews was really interesting, where it showed that some of our output was not really determined by what we had initially thought. And so we found that there were multiple segments that we could also look at. And one of those segments would be in the space-based market. Some really interesting feedback there was that hydrogen fuel cell technology isn't necessarily the route that people are going anymore, that this work has been explored and invested in considerably, but now we're going to focus on something else. So in the space-based market, the idea was to take this hydrogen gas and utilize it as a power generator while you were on another planet trying to come back, or in some other kind of space mining apparatus. So like I was saying, our pivoting was really interesting. We moved away from that hydrogen production under standard conditions. And we also wanted to say we had a competitor that is definitely well known in the market. And one of the reasons that people don't utilize this, and this is water utilized to generate hydrogen gas. Water is a great, cheap, plentiful resource on this planet. However, it also freezes at a relatively warm temperature compared to alcohol, so we had the advantage there. Also, when you utilize hydrogen and do it by alcohol generation versus by water, you have 1/4 the amount of energy expanded to get that hydrogen out of the alcohol. So those were both exciting things for us, and we decided to pivot into where this advantage could be. Our initial business model canvas changed a lot over time. And we thought that our initial customer would be a private space-based company based like SpaceX or other sciences. And one of our most interesting, sorry, this is not our most updated slide deck. But one of our most interesting things that I did want to share with you is that we had gone out and really did a lot of research using our LinkedIn profiles and as well as other contacts that we had in different agencies. One of the most exciting for me personally was utilizing the company X, the Moonshot company. That group, if you're not familiar with that group, is Google. Alphabet, Google's partner company, or parent company, produces this X, the Moonshot company, and their idea is to move forward with big ideas that don't yet have solutions. And so I reached out specifically to that group and worked really hard to hit the biggest people that I could, and oddly enough, I did have a contact that was successful with the CEO of that company, Astro Teller, if you're not familiar with him, and he has since then passed us on to groups that we're working with, and we've exchanged technological information with them and are hoping to have something on their terrestrial-based platform, not their space-based platform. So going forward, what we're looking to do is we would like to have this technology research in this low oxygen environment. We're looking for a lot of great contacts, and we know that you guys can help us along. We're looking to talk about manufacturing this particular product in a way where we modify it so it works not only in the low oxygen environment, but it's scaled up for greater efficiency and can provide resources both in the space area and terrestrially. So please feel free to give us any contacts, and we will take questions later. But my name, once again, is Kara Wiseman, and I will be here all evening, and I'm happy to answer your questions. Thank you so much.
Great. Well, thanks to everybody for being here. That's a wrap for the spring cohort. It was really fun. You know, again, it's an amazing privilege to get to work with all you guys, and we couldn't be more proud of the progress that you made. For those of you that are interested, we have an after party at the Hamilton, which is just right down the street. So if you want to come have a beer with us, we'd love to see you there. Please definitely go up to our teams to ask questions, help them with contacts. You know, the teams really benefit greatly from just the network that we have around this program. Want to thank just again Booz Allen for hosting us. Amazing facility, amazing evening, and thanks to MD5 for sponsoring. If we could have all the teams meet just in this other part of the room here to get a group photo, and then also pick up your FedTech diploma, which I definitely, especially for our PhDs, I want to make sure this goes right on the wall next to your. So, yeah. So again, big round of applause for everybody. Thanks so much, guys.